Her voice didn't just cut through the conversation. It sliced me open. Your job is to pay, not talk. That wasn't a jab. That was a declaration. In front of 12 people, relatives, not strangers. People who knew us. People who already had opinions. Her uncle had just toasted to family sacrifices, and I had, stupidly, shared that I was thinking of surprising her with a trip. A little getaway, just us. First one in years. She didn't wait for me to finish. Not a chuckle. Not a playful tease. No, she looked at me like I'd stepped out of line, like I'd forgotten my role. Her words, sharp as nails, hung there, dead weight in the air. And then came the silence. That thick, suffocating kind. The kind that makes you feel the burn creeping up your neck. I could feel the eyes flicking around the table. No one laughed. Not even her cousin Rachel, who laughs at funerals. Her brother cleared his throat and looked down. Her aunt slowly set down her fork. Her uncle tried to recover with a clumsy joke about the wine, but it was useless. The mood had changed. Everyone felt it. Everyone except her. She was already reaching for the breadbasket, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just gutted me in front of witnesses. I smiled. I've learned that silence makes people uncomfortable. They expect you to bark back, to get defensive. When you don't, when you just absorb it quietly, they don't know what to do. I paid the bill. No one offered to split, even though it was a group dinner. I held the door open as we left. She didn't thank me. In the car, she scrolled her phone the entire drive, half snorting at some meme her friend sent. Not a single mention of what she'd said. I didn't bring it up. That would have been overreacting. That's her favorite word for anything resembling self-respect. When we got home, she complained about a headache and went straight to bed. I stayed in the kitchen, lit only by the oven clock and the glow of my laptop. First, I checked our shared calendar. She had a spa weekend scheduled with her friends in 2 weeks. Of course, massage, facials, overpriced lunches where they clinked champagne glasses over hashtags like hashtag Queens Deserve It All. Then, I pulled up the Lexus financial login. Username mine. Password mine. Car. Hers supposedly. Outstanding balance. $21,420. A healthy monthly payment scheduled like clockwork. Until now. I hovered over the Manage Payments tab. The cursor blinked, waiting for me to stop pretending. It wasn't about the money. Hell, I'd paid for worse. What bothered me was the story she told with it. The illusion she paraded around like a handbag. Her lifestyle, her independence, the car, the clothes, the dinners. Like she was self-made. Like I was just the silent background, a walking subscription service for her life. Click. Disable autopay? Yes. Pop-up warning. This may result in late fees and potential default. Good. I clicked again and watched the status update. Payment halted. Then I called the bank's servicing line. Explained that I wanted to convert my contact method to mail only, and that the registered driver was the one to notify moving forward. The man on the phone asked if I understood the implications. I said, fully. He paused, then said something that stuck with me. You know, most people wait until it's too late. I didn't answer, just hung up. I wasn't late. I was early. When I walked back to the bedroom, she was asleep, mouth slightly open, still holding her phone against her chest. Probably halfway through a text thread about how annoying I was for not being spontaneous anymore. I stood there, watching her. I wasn't angry. I was something much worse. Cold. Because I knew what was coming. And she didn't have a clue. The sound the system made when I canceled the autopay was anticlimactic. Just a dull click. No dramatic alarm. No flashing red warnings. Just a quiet update. Autopay disabled. The portal politely asked, would you like to leave feedback? I almost laughed. No, thank you. This wasn't feedback. This was a reckoning. I refreshed the page, watching the update finalize. A few days, maybe a week, and the late notice would generate. Standard process. Standard escalation. And I knew the process better than she ever bothered to ask. She thought the Lexus was hers because she picked the color and posted it on Instagram. White diamond pearl for the queen. Her caption read, followed by 3 crown emojis and a champagne glass. 63 likes in 2 hours. But the queen never read the fine print. I did. The lease agreement had one name, mine. The insurance? Mine. Even the dealership emails went to my inbox. She never cared, because to her, luxury didn't require logic, it only required access. And I'd given her too much of that. Too freely. Too often. I opened my Notes app and began making a list. Lexus payment. Canceled. Insurance. Cancel after repossession. Joint card. Remove her name. Account access. Change passwords. I wasn't going nuclear. I was going surgical. And every step had to be clean. The phone call to the lien holder was next. It was early, 8:06 a.m., but I knew they'd be open. Finance doesn't sleep. After the usual authentication dance, last four digits, secret question, mother's maiden name, I finally got a real person. Greg, he said, chipper and bored. I told Greg I wanted to halt payments and have all correspondence regarding non-payment sent directly to the registered driver at the address on file. There was a pause. Just so you're aware, sir, he said, tapping away in the background. This will likely result in a default notice. If no payment is made, repossession could occur. Are you sure you want that on your credit? That's why I'm asking it be mailed to the driver, I said. I'm fully aware. He paused again. So, you're not the one driving the vehicle? No, I said. She is. I just pay for it. Another pause. This one longer. I see, he said slowly. Look, I'm not supposed to say this, but there will be consequences. You understand. I'm counting on it, I said, and then hung up. I opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out her spare key, set it on the counter, just stared at it. It was one of those newer ones, sleek, chrome-lined, with the remote start and panic button. She liked showing it off, letting it dangle from her designer keychain in front of friends like a status symbol. She once said, at a dinner party, "Oh, I could never date a man who drives anything under 60K. I'd laughed back then, pretending it was a joke, pretending we were both in on it. Now I just saw it for what it was, a statement of values. And I'd spent years financing someone else's values at the expense of my own. I went back to the laptop, screenshot the dashboard showing the disabled payment, saved a copy to a hidden folder on my desktop named Independence. Next, I drafted an email to my accountant. Not sent, not yet. Just saved. Subject line. Let's talk about financial separation options. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not my friends. Not my brother. Not even my barber, who somehow knows everything before I do. This wasn't rage. This was logistics. Let her sip mimosas with her friends. Let her brag about her car, her nails, her brunches, her hard-earned lifestyle. Soon, something would be missing from the picture. And when it happened, it wouldn't look like an attack. It would look like life reminding her of a very inconvenient truth. Access can be revoked. The photo popped up in my feed like a landmine with lace. She had tagged me, in a brunch post with the caption, "When your man knows his role, face blowing a kiss, nail polish sparkles." In the photo, she sat at the center of a pristine outdoor table, oversized sunglasses, mimosa in hand, perfectly manicured nails resting on the stem. On the plate, something unnecessarily complicated, lobster eggs Benedict or some brunch Frankenstein dish that cost more than a tank of gas. Behind her, parked just so in the frame, was the Lexus, gleaming, framed like a trophy. The comments rolled in. Yes, Queen Crown. Manifesting this energy fire. You trained him right, face with tears of joy, sparkling heart. I didn't like it. Didn't say a word. That silence again, my new favorite weapon. But I did open the loan dashboard. Still unpaid. Status. Delinquent. Grace period ends in 4 days. The portal was so polite about it. As if the system itself didn't want to spook her. As if it were gently clearing its throat, preparing to knock. She had no idea what was coming. She never did. She never asked. She just assumed money worked like magic. It appeared, she spent it, and I stayed quiet. That night, while I was reading in the living room, she breezed in, humming. She was glowing from the sun and champagne, reeking of lavender and entitlement. She plopped her designer bag on the counter and said, "Hey babe, I need you to move some money around for me. Jen's organizing a spa trip next week, Palm Springs. You know, girl stuff." I kept my place in the book with one finger. "Let's talk about that tonight." She didn't even stop walking. "Just handle it," she said over her shoulder, already heading toward the bedroom. "I'm too tired to think about money right now." "Oh, sweetheart, you never think about money. That's the problem." I watched her disappear down the hallway, then stared at the bag she'd just tossed. It was a limited edition leather tote I didn't recognize. New, bold red, probably bought during her quick errand on Tuesday. The receipt was sticking out of the zipper. I checked. $1,740. I didn't say anything. Instead, I walked to my home office and printed the current loan statement. Still unpaid. Default deadline approaching. Then I opened her Instagram again. She was already posting stories. Boomerangs of champagne splashes, slow zooms of chocolate lava cake. Her friend mockingly pretending to faint from the bill before laughing about men who know their place. I wasn't angry. I was detached. Like I'd finally stepped outside the simulation she kept building. This filtered fantasy where consequences never visited her door. Back at the kitchen, I saw her phone vibrating on the island. A name popped up I didn't recognize. K. Two Hearts Money with Wings. I picked it up, turned it to silence. And there it was. Her screen lit up with notifications. K. Two Hearts Money with Wings. Girl, I saw the post. El Noo fire 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 you winning. Lexus Pay reminder. Your payment is now 11 days late. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't the irony that got me. It was the fact that she hadn't even opened the email. She probably thought Lexus Pay was a spam ad. Or worse, something for me to deal with. Her world had rules. Appearance over accountability. Champagne over caution. Ego over equity. She thought I was just another line item on her spreadsheet of luxuries. And I had been. For too long. But now I was the overdue notice she refused to read. The silence she thought meant obedience? That was just the sound of something breaking, quietly, methodically, beneath her high heels. She never opened her mail. I learned that early on, back when envelopes used to pile up on the kitchen counter like fallen leaves. She called it mental health. I called it negligence. But she'd laugh and say, if it's important, they'll text me. And so, when the envelope from the finance company arrived, thick, official, with that unmistakable window exposing her name in all caps, she didn't flinch. She walked in from yoga, barely glanced at it, and tossed it onto the granite counter next to an empty green juice bottle. God, that instructor is insane, she huffed, wiping her forehead with a towel. I think I dislocated something. She pulled off her shoes, walked to the fridge, and started rummaging for oat milk like we weren't 2 days away from open financial warfare. The letter lay there, unopened, alone. Inside it, a default warning. Large font, bold red lines, terms outlined in cruel detail. If payment wasn't received by Friday at 11:59 p.m., the bank reserved the right to initiate repossession without further notice. One sentence in particular stood out. The vehicle will be subject to seizure at any time, without additional warning to the driver. And that driver was on her way to brunch again, telling her followers about manifesting luxury. Later that morning, as she tied her hair up and looked at her reflection in the mirror by the front door, she kissed me on the cheek. Her lip gloss left a faint smudge. Don't forget to send the rent, okay? She said sweetly. It's the first. She adjusted her coat, grabbed her keys, and left with a smile that had no idea it was living on borrowed time. I wiped my cheek with my sleeve, then picked up the envelope, opened it carefully. Inside was everything I needed. The repossession warning, the agent's contact info, the case ID, a fax number, how quaint, a direct line to the repo unit for urgent communication. I sat at the dining table, pulled my laptop closer, drafted a simple, elegant message. To whom it may concern. Regarding case number 741209, registered to her full name. Please be advised the primary borrower has no intention of resolving this delinquency. You are hereby authorized to proceed with asset recovery at your earliest convenience. The registered user parks the vehicle most frequently at her brunch spot address. Yes, I checked the location tags on her last 5 posts. Attached is a signed statement confirming sole ownership of the vehicle loan. Best. Me? I faxed it in. I know. Who faxes anything anymore? But that's the beauty of this entire process. She never thought I'd be petty enough to follow the fine print. She was used to social media drama, subtweets, and passive-aggressive emojis. She wasn't ready for analog revenge. I watched the fax machine spit out the confirmation page. Transmission, successful. 1 click. 1 paper trail. 1 final signal to release the hounds. The car she called her second baby. The one she posted selfies in every other week. The one she used to flirt for valet upgrades. It was officially on the bank's hit list. And she had no idea. That night, over dinner, she scrolled through her phone and giggled. Someone at brunch today said I should start a vlog, she said, chewing steak she didn't pay for. Like, a day in the life of a baddie. What do you think? I took a sip of wine. I think it's about time people see the real you. She smiled, not catching it. Behind her, on the counter, the envelope was gone. She must have tossed it when clearing the mail pile earlier. Didn't even read it. Perfect. She thought this was a dinner conversation. I knew it was a countdown. And the clock was already ticking in a tow yard's back office, under fluorescent lights, where someone now had her license plate printed on a clipboard. The call came in at 12:42 p.m. I was standing in the kitchen, pouring myself coffee, watching the sunlight stretch across the tiles like it knew something was coming. The air was still. That kind of loaded silence before a storm. Except the storm wasn't weather. It was her. My phone buzzed. Her. Incoming call, 12:42 p.m. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I picked up. There was a pause, just the sound of frantic breathing. Then, finally, there are 2 men by my car. No greeting, no fake sweetness, just chaos, unvarnished and raw. They're looking at my VIN. What the hell is going on? They won't let me in. She was trying to sound angry, but the panic was already bubbling through. Her voice had lost that sharp, condescending edge. It cracked on the word won't. That crack was everything. I didn't say anything at first. I just listened to the background noise, the birds, the shuffle of papers, and a muffled male voice calmly saying something about secured collateral. Then she spoke again, faster this time. They said they're from the bank, that the car's being repossessed. I told them it has to be a mistake. Tell them it's a mistake. There it was. The desperation. The moment when the queen realizes the throne isn't hers, it's rented. She expected me to swoop in, to apologize on her behalf, to call the bank, flex some financial muscle, and sweep her back into safety. She expected the man who knows his role to do his job. Instead, I took a sip of coffee. Calm. Steady. Then said, "It's not." Click. Hung up. The silence afterward was its own kind of music. I didn't smile. I didn't dance around the kitchen like I'd won something. I just stood there and let it land. Let it sink into my bones that, for once, I hadn't swallowed the insult, hadn't shrugged it off or rationalized her cruelty with the usual mental gymnastics. I'd simply said no. No to being a prop in her performance. No to financing her delusion. No to being her safety net while she walked tightropes for Instagram likes. Her call didn't come again. Not immediately. I imagined her trying. Calling the bank. Calling the dealership. Demanding answers with that voice she used when she didn't get her way. Sharp, performative, indignant. The voice of someone who'd never been told the word consequences. I knew the moment. I could see it. She'd pace. Snap at her friends. Try to play it off. But she wouldn't get back in that car. Because it wasn't hers anymore. Across town, a man in steel-toed boots and sunglasses would be sliding behind the wheel, clipboard on the dash, engine humming. She could keep the key fob on her designer keychain. Let it dangle as a relic of the story she used to tell. But the story was over. And for the first time, I wasn't part of the cleanup crew. She had always counted on my silence as consent. This time, silence was the sentence. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I didn't even flinch. She came in like a storm that had forgotten how to land. Hair wild, eyes red, purse half open, phone still clutched in her hand like a weapon. She didn't even take off her heels. The sharp staccato of them echoed through the hall until she stood at the threshold of the living room, shoulders heaving. "You did this." I took another sip of coffee, lukewarm by now, set the mug down with careful precision. Looked up. Technically, the bank did. Her jaw twitched. "Don't you dare play coy with me right now." She stepped closer, furious, frantic. "You stopped paying. You let them take my car." I tilted my head. "No." I stopped being treated like a debit card with legs. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the right insult fast enough. And when the words did come, they were weak. "Petty. You embarrassed me in front of my friends." Now I smiled, small, cold, surgical. "You embarrassed me in front of my family." Her face changed, like the blood drained straight out of it, and took the venom with it. She stood there, chest rising and falling, trying to think of a comeback that would make me bend, or flinch, or apologize. Nothing came. Just silence. And then, the shift. The rage cracked, collapsed inward. Tears welled up, big, heavy ones that clung to her mascara and rolled down in perfect, performative lines. She crumpled into the armchair across from me like she'd been struck. "They were laughing," she whispered. "I know," I said. Calm, unforgiving. "They said," Kay said, "guess your man doesn't know his role after all." I leaned back in the chair. Sounds like Kay finally got something right. She shook her head, almost childlike now, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "You don't get it. That car. I love that car." "No," I corrected. "You loved what that car said about you." She winced. And there it was. The collapse. Not loud. Not violent. Just empty. She sat there, broken in a way I hadn't seen before. Not because something inside her shattered, but because she realized something inside me had. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't begging. That's what scared her. I was done. She reached for her phone, probably to text someone. Her mother, her best friend, maybe even a lawyer. But the battery was dead. Even her phone had nothing left to say. "You didn't warn me," she whispered. "You just let it happen." I nodded. "Yeah, that's what you've been doing to me for years. Bit by bit." She blinked. Looked like she wanted to argue. But what could she say? That she hadn't been draining me like a transaction? That she hadn't thrown me under the brunch bus for clout and champagne? No. She just sat there and cried and stared. Eventually, she stood. Not defiantly. Not even with purpose. Just stood. Walked down the hall. Closed the door to the bedroom softly, like she was afraid to wake something that couldn't be undone. And I poured out the cold coffee, rinsed the mug, dried it, placed it back in the cabinet. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible for fixing what she broke. The next morning, I made eggs. For myself. She slept late, her version of sulking. I didn't wake her. I didn't check on her. I didn't offer to make coffee or ask if she wanted oat milk or almond. I just cracked the shells, salted the pan, and watched the edges crisp. And while the eggs cooled, I logged into our bank portal. Joint account, still active. Still linked to all her little luxuries. Amazon orders, automatic Sephora refills, delivery apps, and of course, the wellness app she never used but proudly subscribed to. I clicked, close account. It prompted me to transfer the remaining balance, my money, mostly, to a different account. I didn't hesitate. I'd already opened a new one in my name the night before. The joint account evaporated. She wouldn't find out until her nail appointment later that afternoon. That's when she'd hand over the card like a queen bestowing a favor and get declined like a peasant at the gate. Next, credit card. The big one. The one we never technically shared, but that she used like we did. She wasn't an authorized user. I'd just given her a second card, years ago. Back when I believed in trust. Back when her version of appreciation was posting our dinners online with captions like, "My king spoils me." I went to manage additional cards. Located hers. Clicked, cancel. No ceremony. No confirmation needed. Just a quiet severing. Her name was gone. I sat back and looked around the kitchen. It was oddly peaceful. Her chaos hadn't touched it yet today. No half-opened juice bottles. No scattered receipts. No hair ties coiled around the drawer handles. Just clean surfaces and silence. She came downstairs around 11, still in a robe, scrolling through her phone with that blank, caffeinated stare she wore when her world started to feel less curated. "You didn't bring in the groceries?" she asked. I looked up. Didn't order any. But I sent the list last night. "You also said last week that my job was to pay," I said. "I've stepped down." She blinked. Very funny. A few hours later, I got a notification from the salon app. We still shared a login. Card declined. Please update payment method to confirm booking. 3 minutes later, another. Instacart, payment failed. She came into my office 10 minutes after that. Quietly. Not yelling, yet. Just confused. "Did something happen to the bank card?" "No," I said. "It's just not yours anymore. You can't just cut me off." "Why not? You were crystal clear last week. You said I was here to pay. You didn't say anything about opinions, conversation, or partnership. You defined the job." She tried to play it calm. Tried to laugh it off. "Okay, you're making a point. Got it. Can you transfer?" "No," I said. Flat. Final. She paused. Tilted her head. "So this is how it's going to be now? Just punishment?" "It's not punishment," I said, standing. "It's recalibration. You wanted a provider, not a partner. I'm just aligning the services with the contract you drafted in front of 12 people and a bottle of Pinot Noir." She opened her mouth to say something, probably a cutting remark, probably something about how I was being dramatic. Instead, her phone vibrated. Another failed transaction. Her yoga subscription this time. She looked down, then up. Her confidence flickered. "I have things to do," she said, but it was soft. Like she didn't believe her own schedule anymore. I nodded. "Then I suggest you find a way to pay for them." She left the room slower than she entered. No slamming. No retorts. Just the realization starting to set in. Credit, access, comfort. It had all flowed like water. Until now. And now the faucet was off. Not out of spite. Out of policy. The call came in just after sunset, while I was reorganizing the kitchen drawer. The one full of menus, expired coupons, and pins that never worked when you needed them to. I was tossing out the junk when the screen lit up. Ryan, her cousin. I hesitated. He was one of the few relatives of hers I actually respected. Quiet guy. Took care of his parents. Never jumped in the drama pile. She always stirred at family gatherings. If Ryan was calling, it wasn't to gossip. It was to understand. I picked up. "Hey, man," he started awkwardly. "Listen, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but what's going on over there?" I didn't answer right away. "She called me crying," he continued. "Said you froze all the accounts, repoed her car, and now she can't even buy groceries. She said you're sabotaging her." I exhaled through my nose. leaned against the counter, and looked at the ceiling like it held the answer. Did she tell you what she said at Uncle Dean's birthday? Silence on the other end. Then, yeah, I was there. It was out of line. Out of line. That was generous. Then she's not being sabotaged, I said calmly. She's being reminded. He didn't argue. He just said, damn. And that was the whole thing, really. The next 2 days were a slow leak of whispers, side eyes, and family texts that she couldn't quite control. I could feel the shift. It started with small things, her aunt commenting less on her posts, her cousin removing that fire emoji under her brunch pic, her sister not tagging her in the family group chat. Apparently, she had told them I cut her off for no reason, that I was having a breakdown. But families talk. And this one, hers, was messier than she thought. Because someone forwarded a screenshot. Not to me, but to another cousin. And that cousin passed it along. The screenshot? Her Instagram story from last week. When your man knows his role, face blowing a kiss, nail polish sparkles. It made the rounds. Quietly. No comment needed. Then came the questions. She said that to him at dinner? In front of the whole table? She said what? And she wonders why he cut the cards. She really thought she could keep posting like that and not catch heat. Suddenly, the sympathy she expected wasn't lining up. Even her mother, who normally defended her through anything short of homicide, called me. She's devastated. Her mom said in that syrupy voice that had always rubbed me the wrong way. She says you're trying to ruin her. I didn't bother arguing. I just said, what exactly did she think I was for? Another pause. Then a quieter voice. She said she was just joking. Sure, I said. But jokes have consequences when you build your whole life around them. She tried to post through it at first. Another outfit selfie. Another vague caption about leveling up and cutting negative people out. She probably thought it looked empowering. But the comments weren't what they used to be. No hard eyes from her friends. Just one quiet comment from her cousin Nikki. You sure you're the one doing the cutting? She deleted it. Then locked her profile. She wasn't the victim now. She was a character in a story, and not the kind she wanted to be. The receipts weren't texts. They were patterns. Posts. Behavior. A trail of curated vanity and condescension now viewed under a different light. Without money, without access, without the illusion of control. She wasn't charming. She was exposed. And people were starting to remember things they used to ignore. She set the table that night. Not the way she used to, with music playing and a glass of wine already half full. There was no clinking, no laughter from the living room, no perfume hanging in the air. Just 2 plates. Silverware slightly askew. A fork placed where a knife should have been, and vice versa. Sloppy. Distracted. Like her mind had been somewhere else entirely. I came in from the porch as she lit a single candle in the middle of the table, her hand trembling just enough to give it away. Dinner was, well, edible. Overcooked salmon, cold asparagus, some rice she probably scraped together from what was left in the pantry. The kind of dinner you make when you don't want to cook, but need to act like you still know how to take care of someone. Or maybe, like you're trying to remember how. She sat down across from me and stared at her plate like it had wronged her. Dragged the fork through the rice, but didn't eat. Not even a nibble. I didn't speak either. Just watched her from across the table, chewing slowly, letting the silence fill the cracks between us. It wasn't the kind of silence that begged for resolution. It was the kind that lingered when resolution was already off the table. Her eyes kept darting to me, then away again. Like she wanted to say something, but didn't trust her own voice. Or maybe she didn't trust mine anymore. Either way, the quiet was doing what no argument ever could. After 10 full minutes of watching the candle flicker between us, she finally spoke. Softly, carefully. Are you leaving? I didn't answer right away. Just set down my fork, wiped my mouth with a napkin. Not yet, I said. She looked up, surprised, maybe even confused. Then why? She stopped, swallowed. Why are you doing this? I met her eyes. Calm, unflinching. Because I finally heard you. That broke something. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a shift. A micro collapse behind her eyes. No eye roll, no scoff, no smug reply about taking things too seriously. Just her sitting there, silent, processing. She looked older in that moment. Not physically, but spiritually. Like the weight of what she'd built, what she thought she'd built, had started to cave in, and she was realizing there was no foundation. Just props. Appearances. My generosity stretched into a lifestyle she'd mistaken for her own merit. She picked at her fish again, eyes glassy now. But she didn't cry. Maybe she finally understood tears weren't currency anymore. Is this forever? She asked, voice barely audible. I didn't answer. Because honestly, I didn't know. This wasn't about drama. It wasn't about punishment. It wasn't even about the car or the brunch or the goddamn caption. It was about the moment a man realizes he's been edited out of his own story and decides to write a different ending. We finished dinner in silence. She cleared the table afterward without being asked. No sighs, no attitude, just quiet. When she passed me in the hallway later, she paused for a moment like she was going to say something, then thought better of it, went to bed alone, and left me with the kind of silence that doesn't scream anymore. It just remembers. The drawer had always been hers. Her little command center of chaos. Old receipts, expired coupons she swore she'd use, takeout menus from restaurants we hadn't ordered from in years, loose hair ties, pens that didn't work, that one mini tape measure she bought just in case. And I never touched it. Not once. It was her territory, like the walk-in closet I was slowly evicted from year after year. But that morning, I opened it, moved aside the clutter like I was peeling back years of noise, excuses, and lipstick-stained narratives. I slid the envelope in gently. Not dramatic. Not taped to the fridge like some passive-aggressive threat. Just placed. Like a document waiting for acknowledgement. Inside was everything she refused to see. The printed loan agreement. My name at the top. Under the heading borrower, highlighted in fluorescent yellow. A screenshot from the Lexus account. Red letters at the top. Default status. Active. Date and time stamped. Just so she couldn't claim I made it up. And one sticky note. Blue. Neat handwriting. You said my job was to pay. So I quit. That's it. No monologue. No manifesto. Just the truth she'd choked on for years, now served cold, paperbacked and signature certified. I left the drawer open just a sliver. Enough that she'd notice. Then I left the house. I didn't go far. Just needed air. Some space between me and the story she'd been performing for so long. The one where I was a background prop with a wallet for a mouth and nothing else. When I came home, hours later, the drawer was closed. The envelope was gone. She didn't say a word about it. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even in the days that followed. She just moved quieter. Slower. Her phone didn't buzz like it used to. No obnoxious voice memos from her girls. No aggressive laughter from the kitchen over bottom shelf rows and stories about the clueless men they manipulated like chess pieces. She'd gone still. She didn't need to ask what the envelope meant. It wasn't about the car anymore. It wasn't even about the money. It was about everything that came before it and what came after. About every time she called me boring in front of friends. Every time she rolled her eyes when I asked for a moment of her attention. Every time she treated my effort like an invoice. And now? Now the transaction had ended. She hadn't lost a car. She'd lost control. Not in a loud, screaming, door-slamming kind of way. In a quieter, crueler way. The kind of loss you don't even realize you're feeling until the lights are still on, but no one's home anymore. Until the faucet works, but there's no water. Until you reach for the card, and it just declines. And I didn't gloat. I didn't twist the knife. I just existed. On my terms. She sat at the kitchen island a few nights later, stirring tea that had long gone cold. Looked up at me like she wanted to say something. Maybe even apologize, maybe not. But she didn't. She just looked. Tired. Small. And I realized something. The debt wasn't just financial anymore. It was emotional. And I'd been paying it alone for years. Now, collection was over. And the repossession? That was just the first thing she lost.